Hello and welcome to Empire Builders, the place for entrepreneurs, business owners and experts who want to build an epic empire. I'm Nick James and thanks for joining me here today. In this episode, you're going to hear me interview the amazing Fearne Cotton. This was recorded live at one of our Expert Empires events in 2024. I asked Fearne, how has she managed to get so many people to attend her live festivals? How has she managed to publish 14 best-selling books? How has she managed to build such an amazing personal brand that's reaching loads of people? She's got an amazing podcast called Happy Place. So you're going to learn from Fearne how she's achieved all of that and more. I think you're going to love this episode. So stay tuned for the whole thing and enjoy it.
The first question I really want to ask you, because I've been doing events a long time, and we do pretty well. We've got, 500 plus people here at this event. You get between 6,000 and 7,000 people to come to your Happy Place festivals. That is serious. And I know how hard the events business is. So tell me, what inspired you to start the festival and how do you get 6,000, 7,000 people each time to come?
Yeah, it's massively impressive what you've done here today, and I know you've done many times before. And yeah, the event space, I think, is a real challenge, and it's been a real learning curve for me personally, because obviously I had sort of years and years of this sort of traditional broadcasting career, and now a lot of my work sits in the business sector and trying to grow what we're doing with Happy Place. And the live event space felt like a brilliant way to bring to life everything we're doing with Happy Place. So a lot of people still might know it first and foremost as the podcast, and that will probably always be the backbone of what we're trying to do. But we've also got to go out and meet people and reach people and give people different experiences and opportunities they might not normally think to partake in. So that is our way of just celebrating everything that we're trying to do, bringing people together. I think the sense of community is really important. I think that's why events like this are really good. We can all watch a video on YouTube or look at a Zoom, conference or something going on we're interested in, but nothing beats being in a space with other people that are interested in the same things as you. So we're really trying to do that with the festival. And I don't know how we get that many people there. We've been building it for the last 5 years alongside the brand. And it is continuous work to make sure that we keep the standard high of who we've got doing talks there, what the offerings are in terms of classes you get to partake in, like yoga or meditation, or we do some wacky stuff now like laughing yoga and all sorts of brilliant things. And we just need to be ahead of the curve, I think, with wellness. I sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable being in the wellness bracket, because I think sometimes it's delivered in a really helpful way and other times not so much. And I want to be on the right side of that with what we're doing and ahead of what's going on. I don't want it to be too twee or prescriptive, because I don't think it should be. I want it to be helpful. So it's a lot of work, as you well know, but it's so fulfilling. Like, I'm sure you'll walk away after these 2 days feeling on top of the world that you've done.
I think fulfilling is one word I'd use to describe it. Absolutely knackered would be another word I'd use to describe it. But yeah, I know what you say. So you were, I don't know how many years in broadcasting. What was the reason for you starting, if the Happy Place podcast was the beginning, I guess, of this whole new direction for you? What was the inspiration for the Happy Place podcast? Why go from a hugely successful broadcasting career into something that's completely different?
Yeah, well, there was definitely no inspiration at that time, that is for sure. I had been doing traditional broadcasting since I was 15, all sorts of different TV shows and Radio 1 and all sorts of...
I'm not really allowed to ask this. What was your favourite TV show?
Fingertips, who said that? Oh, great shout. Fingertips was an art show back in the early noughties. If you missed that, it was a classic. Dig It. Oh, someone is as old as me in here. Hello. Substitute, great fun.
I feel really bad because I haven't heard of any of them apart from Celebrity Juice. I was like, what a show that was.
Thanks, mate.
Says a lot about me, probably. Says more about me than it does about you.
You were too cool. Top of the Pops was a real experience because I grew up watching it, and also every week you would just meet just the most amazing, relevant musicians of that time. And it felt special and nerve-wracking every time, which was great. So that was brilliant. And it was all good, and I'm so grateful for all of it. But personally, I think I went through, like a lot of people do, just a lot of thinking about life and where I was headed and how, I don't know, a lot of stuff started to not make sense anymore. And I was going through some other sort of stuff personally, and I just totally hit a wall mentally. So I felt absolutely in a black hole, felt terrible, terrible, terrible mentally. And that's not great when you're live on the radio every day, having to be very sunny and entertaining people and bringing levity and humour. It was really, really challenging on many occasions. So I think personally I was just in a very weird place, and I was a bit lost, if I'm honest with you. But I still kind of pushed through and carried on doing a certain amount of that kind of work. And then the panic started. So this is about maybe 3-4 years after I'd felt very, very low. I started having such regular panic. I'd never had a panic attack before this point. But when they started, it was like every day. Every day I was having panic attacks. And I think...
Is this why you were still broadcasting?
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time... I think some of that came from this strange experience of knowing I could do the job, because I've been doing it a very long time at that point, and knowing that I was good at it a lot of the time, but then having, obviously when you are either in the public eye or, and this is in any area, or good at what you do or successful in any way, the heavy downside to that is you're absolutely open to criticism immediately. So if you want to be successful, brilliant, you will get criticised. There's no way around that. And I started to really struggle with that. And it started to really affect my confidence, my self-esteem. It started to bring on these horrible panic attacks. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to just do something completely different. And I'd had no clue what that was going to be. I didn't go... right, let's start doing some wellness stuff and see where that goes. I had no plans. Like, I was still doing Celebrity Juice at this point, but I had very little else going on. And I wrote a book called Happy. And that was just an experiment. That was, let me write down a few thoughts and feelings about this mental health sort of period that I'd been through, and see if it can help anyone else. Or I don't know if I even thought it would help anyone. I thought maybe it would make people feel a bit less alone in it. I didn't think I had any wisdom to impart. But luckily, that book seemed to do quite well, and people seemed to like that subject matter, and it gave me the space to write more and to try new things, and that's where the podcast idea came from. So it was all really accidental. None of it was planned. It was like, stumbling into doing a podcast. Stumbling into this next thing. Now it's not that. Now we're very much, premeditated about it, and we have, a lot of brilliant people on the team sitting and thinking about where we go next and how we can reach more people. But it was a very, very happy accident from a very, very unhappy time.
Sure. When you think about like the podcast and your journey, I'm always fascinated. Who inspired you? Like, were the podcasts you listened to, courses you took, books you read on your journey? And would you mind sharing who those were?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think I actually, when I started Happy Place, I don't think I'd even listened to a podcast before. I don't think I'd listened to a single one.
You know what's hilarious? I was exactly the same. So I was starting a podcast and I went, I should probably listen to some podcasts first, so I can see what this is all about, really.
Yeah.
So same.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing, because then you're not trying to emulate anyone, and I wasn't too worried about comparison, because I was just trying something new for myself. So, but I had, huge broadcasting icons, absolutely, like Sir Terry Wogan and Zoe Ball, and, all these people that I'd sort of grown up just going, wow, how can I look as sort of confident as they are in what they're doing, and as skilled. So Terry Wogan was one of the best broadcasters we'll probably ever see. So I had a lot of people I looked up to like that. But in terms of podcasting, I was literally winging it, which I think is the best way, and I'm still winging everything that I'm doing. But I think looking at mental health, yes, there were lots of people that I needed to listen to. You know, I didn't have much choice at that point. I was just listening and reading everything I could to feel better than absolutely awful. So things that spring to mind, there's a really brilliant book called The Four Agreements. I think I read like 3 or 4 times during that period, and it just brought me back to the basics of what really mattered. I think it's by Don Miguel Ruiz, thank you. That book was very, very important at that time. Definitely like listening to a lot of and reading a lot of Eckhart Tolle, which I still do now, and Brené Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection, like all of the books that you would have probably read already, but they were all things that I found so, so helpful at that time. And just meeting interesting people that I now luckily work with in the happy place space. So brilliant people, like there's a yoga teacher called Zephyr Wildman, who's incredibly wise and has studied her craft massively, and she's taught me a hell of a lot. And Donna Lancaster, who's a brilliant, she used to run this amazing sort of, it's not a retreat like where you go and have, you know, your nails done and stuff. It was like a deep dive therapy thing for a week called The Bridge. And her work has really leapt out at me, and we've become friends. So, yeah, I've luckily just sort of met all these amazing people since that have taught me so, so much. But yeah, as I say, at the time, I was just reading and imbibing everything I could to feel a bit better.
You've done a lot of episodes of the Happy Place podcast. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's
I can't. 250?
Yeah, it's in the hundreds. I asked Stephen Bartlett this question, and the answer stimulated a whole new line of discovery for me, because he introduced me to Mo Gaudat, who's speaking tomorrow. Who's been your favourite guest on the podcast?
It's so tricky to pick one because I've learned something from every single episode without a doubt. But there are a couple that really stand out because I'll never forget them. And one of them is actually one of the most important conversations I've had in or outside of work. Wow. And it was with this incredible monk called Bjorn Nathiko Lindblad. And he has died since we've done the podcast. He actually knew that he was going to die at the time. He had about 4 weeks to live, and he really wanted to have a few conversations that would help other people. And he's written a brilliant book called I May Be Wrong, which I urge you to read. It is absolutely incredible. I May Be Wrong. And that exact phrase was something that he learned from one of his teachers, that whenever we find ourselves defensive or in conflict or struggling, to come back to that phrase, I may be wrong, which none of us are particularly good at, but it's a really good bit of advice. But we just had this, I don't even know how to describe that conversation. I feel so lucky to have had that chat with him. I feel like it was like a gift from the universe to have that hour with him. It was deeply emotional. I had a good cry. Like, weirdly and serendipitously, my cat had died the day before, so I was feeling, and this cat I'd had for 21 years, and I felt such grief. Like, if you've got a pet, you know they're part of the family. And I, speaking to someone about death, he was brilliantly explicit in talking about death, was so healing and beautiful and made me, in turn, less scared of it. And yeah, it was a massive eye-opener, and I feel to this day so lucky that I got to have that chat with him.
You've interviewed a lot of, you've done 250 whatever episodes on Happy Place. You've also interviewed a lot of A-list celebrities, and I'm sure there's been some fascinating stories. What's been the most bizarre or weird interview you've ever done?
Do you know what? One of the you do find yourself in these situations where you go, what the F am I doing here? Like, I have it all the time. And like, I was born in a hospital about 2 seconds from this very venue that we're in. I grew up in the suburbs around this area. My dad was a sign writer at Wembley Stadium, or Wembley Arena and Stadium, for his whole career. Like, this is definitely my manor around here. And I always feel like that person, like most of us do. You feel like, most of us don't feel like an adult, if we're really honest, do we? Go, oh God, I'm meant to feel like an adult. Shit, I feel about 18. What the hell's going on? So I constantly have to pull myself from being the kid that was at Wembley Market with my mum buying trainers for a tenner. I have to go, come on, there is that part of you, but you are also a functioning adult who can do scary things. And I had one of these last week. I had to interview Tony Blair, terrifying. So I was definitely feeling like a little scumbag from Wembley Market. And then the one that really springs to mind, and this was again on the podcast, was where I found myself sat in the basement of a hotel, knowing that outside every door of the room, much like the room we're in now but smaller, outside every door was a man with a headpiece on who looked terrifying. And someone kept coming down to our room and going, she'll be here in a moment. And I'd go, okay, fine, absolutely cool. And then she's walking. Okay, she's walking. Shit, she's walking, she's coming. And this was me anticipating having an hour with Hillary Clinton. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So that was one of those moments that felt utterly bizarre. I was definitely battling the inner 12-year-old who's wearing Wembley Market clothes. And really, like that imposter syndrome thing, having to go, no, I can do this. So I think, yeah, there are many moments that feel totally and utterly bizarre.
Sure. Of course, we're here to talk about building businesses at Expert Empires. I'm fascinated with how you're building and have built your business in a slightly different way. We spoke about it briefly last week.
Yeah.
You've essentially partnered with your management company, and they are predominantly operating the business, and you get to do all the stuff you love. I'm imagining that for a lot of people in this room, that sounds like the dream.
Yeah.
It's like, I can get somebody else to run the business, manage the cash flow. We had a conversation earlier about that. Manage the cash flow, hire the team, run the marketing campaigns, all that, and I just got to show up and do my thing.
Yeah.
So talk to us about how that works for you, how you created that, maybe any tips, advice when it comes to partnerships and strategic alliances, because I think from what you've said to me, that works really well for you.
It does. I think at this stage of where we're at, it works really, really well. So I'd been with my management company for, I don't know how many years, but since I was about 18 years old, say. So there's a real good element of trust there. The teams have changed over the years, but there's a really good trusting relationship. So this is still an experiment for both of us, because my management, who are called YM&U Group, they were formerly called James Grant, they have never done this before. So this was an opportunity for us both to try something new and to go into business. So normally when you're a presenter or broadcaster or whatever, you'll obviously just pay a fee, a percentage of whatever you earn to the agency or the management. This is a totally different structure and setup where we're in business together. So yes, I'm in this very fortunate position now where I get to utilise. YMU are a little bit different as well. They've got all these different divisions. They have like a live events division, a brand division, a literary division. They're sort of growing in divisions constantly because they want to expand and become a very interesting setup. So I get to use all of these brilliant people, not exclusively, I'm definitely sharing them with a lot of other people, but I do get to use them and to collaborate with them. And then more recently, we've just been able to start hiring exclusive Happy Place team members. We've only got 2 at the moment, but they're 2 people that really we need sort of full-time on the project. And I think as we grow, hopefully we'll expand those team members so that we've got people just running Happy Place constantly. So yes, it is a really lovely setup that works at the moment, and everyone seems to really enjoy what we're doing, and I think that makes a massive difference to me. You know, I'm always going to be the driving force behind it and behind the ideas, but to see that everyone is equally as passionate about hopefully doing something positive and putting some good out there, you know, that gives me a really wonderful support network that I'm very grateful for.
What tips would you give? I know a lot of people in this room either run a podcast or are thinking about starting one or have written a book, or after Chloe's presentation earlier are going to write a book. What advice would you give to someone who's looking at building assets like that, books, podcasts, and the brand? Because I think, you know, what you've done really well is you've created everything to sit around this Happy Place brand. What tips or what advice would you give to people that are thinking that way in the room?
Yeah, well, obviously I sort of have done it a bit back to front in terms of I had this broadcasting career first where I was able to build up a bit of a platform. And then I was able to start cultivating something totally new. So I'm not even going to give you advice necessarily about what I've done with Happy Place because I already had a platform. That's an extremely fortunate place to start with, some people that know and like what you do already. I'd rather go back to when I started, so when I was 15. And I wasn't building a brand there, but I was certainly building some kind of momentum to get to the place where I could start to create a brand. So, yeah, I'm 15 years old. I'm from round here. And I want something exciting. I want to do something exciting. What is it? And I had no clue at that point it was broadcasting, but I knew it wasn't academic. So I was like, it's something maybe on the stage or whatever. So that's where I started to have to really hustle. I had zero contacts in the industry. I had no skill set. I had no clue what I was doing, but I had an absolute determination and I was unbelievably hungry for it. And I still am. I wouldn't be sat here today if I wasn't still hungry for it. I am never complacent. I'm never not completely grateful for what I'm doing. And it all started back then. And I think that is something that when things are going badly, and I've had some seriously bad times at work, unbelievably, unimaginably bad times where you feel like the world is against you and it's bloody horrible. But in those times, you've got to try and still locate that hunger because you wouldn't be sat in this room today if you didn't have it. So it's in there. So when things are going disastrously wrong or you feel like you have that imposter syndrome or you're doubting yourself hugely, just try and locate that hunger and go back to it. It is so important to relocate it because it doesn't ever go. It just gets clouded over by so much other rubbish. And it usually comes from other people, that nonsense that you let in. So just try and get back to that. And I think what I have tried to do with Happy Place is keep things as personal, intimate, and hate this word, but have to use it, authentic, as I did in my broadcasting career, where I just had me. There was nothing else. It was just me, usually and a microphone. So I had to be transparent, authentic, and me. And I'm attempting to do that with Happy Place. We've got to have that transparency and that clarity, and for it to feel intimate and like people have a relationship with the brand. So I think I've always tried to do that, even from when I was a kid, for people to know who I am, know what I'm about, and understand, because we've all got something brilliantly unique about us and special about us. You just have to let other people know about it. And sometimes you have to have also the confidence to feel like you can tell other people about it. But we've all got something to say and we've all got a story to tell. It's just about confidence. And those people that you see, we've all got people, in some sort of hierarchy, maybe above us, or people that we really admire or aspire to be like. Often it's not that they're any better than us or they've got anything more to say. They've just got the confidence to say it. I see it all the time with people that I interview. They've just got the confidence to say it. And I think that comes with practice. Because I'm very comfortable sat here today talking about life and being honest and open. But if you said, right, you've got to go and present this live TV show tomorrow, here's an auto cue, it's a game show, and I don't care about it, my confidence will go in a heartbeat. I would be shaking, I'd have a panic attack waiting in the wings. So I think it's so important to find those things you're really comfortable about and then just keep cultivating that confidence to tell your story or to talk about your brand or your business or whatever it is. I don't think anyone's born with that confidence. I think we just have to keep practicing it and cultivating it.
What do you love most about what you do?
It's the opportunity to be extremely curious about people. I am never not curious about individuals. I love talking to people. I love being on my own as well, but I love talking to people. And I love figuring or trying to figure them out. You can never figure anyone out entirely, but that to me is so exciting. And every time I go into a studio to do the podcast, I'm a little bit nervous, I'm buzzing like a child, and I'm eager. I'm I have no clue what I'm going to get. Even if it's someone that I know or I've met a few times before, you never really know what you're going to get. And I think I'll always get a kick out of that. I mean, I've been doing the podcast now for 5 years, and I'm nowhere near being relaxed about it. I'm still totally on my toes. And I think that's also very important, because certainly, you know, and I can be honest with you, my new friends, when I was in my Radio 1 career, I did get complacent. I could do it with my eyes closed. I got really complacent, and I don't think that's a great place to be. I think it's so important to feel a little bit on edge about things and to have that nervousness. I think it's a good thing.
What's the hardest bit about what you do? What's the bit that you go, for Todd, it's cash flow forecasts. For other people in this room, like when you're running a business, there's always going to be an element of it that doesn't really give you energy, that you don't love to do as much. What's that for you? I
mean, this goes back again right to the start of my career, and it's other people's opinions. I've had to deal with that en masse. It's clearly a lesson in this life I've had to learn, but I hate it. I find it deeply unnerving. Even if it's positive, I find it unnerving because, yeah, but I don't know how much of it to take seriously, or how much of it should boost me, or how much of it should make me feel good. So I see most of it now as just completely benign. But the negative feedback, and I think, obviously things have been amplified because of social media, I struggle with deeply, and I think it's caused me much mental torment and turmoil, and has given me all sorts of strange mental health complexities that I might not have had if I wasn't in the public eye. And I think it still massively informs how I go about my business outside of work. I'm constantly worrying about how people might be thinking of me or judging me, or what their assumptions are, because people do make assumptions of you when you're in the public eye, or you speak publicly, or you have a brand that is well known, whatever it might be. And it's often a tiny, tiny percentage of who you really are. So I really struggle with other people's assumptions and en masse commentary. Yeah, I dread it.
I think what's really interesting, I don't know what you all think, I think that's probably your key to success as well, though.
Why is that?
I think there are so many people in what I'm going to call the personal development, self-improvement world, and the front is, I've got it all sorted.
I've got nothing sorted. That's why I do
what I mean is,
I haven't got a clue.
No one's got it all sorted, but the bravado is, I've got it, I've got this perfect life, perfect relationship, perfect business, perfect everything, and it's refreshing for someone to give the truth, which is, I haven't got it all sorted, and it's more relatable, I think, and, from my perspective, I think that's probably been the success of the Happy Place brand.
Well, do you know what? Thank you. It's very, very kind of you to say that. And I probably forget that sometimes, that I speak in a very honest way, because I'm just being me.
Sure.
But I guess on a brand level, I do want Happy Place to be the antithesis of that you've just spoken of. And it's what I mentioned earlier, that my slight discomfort with the wellness thing, that it is very like, this is how you can be a better you, and like, F off. No, like a lot of the people I'm talking to, and it's certainly where I was, say, 10 years ago, just want to feel all right. I don't want to be a better them. I just want to feel okay. So I think that is the foundation of what we're doing with the brand. And personally, I don't know anything. That's why, I love coming to do these sorts of talks. I do them all the time. I'm doing 2 on Saturday, in fact. I love doing this sort of thing because I like to bust the myth of fame. It's bullshit. It's not a thing. And also even success of what it is and what it means. And I think wellness gets so warped because people do, you're right, they talk about it in a way where, it's very prescriptive. Or it's very like, if you do this one thing, your life will change. And it's like, no, it won't. No, it won't. Sorry, great book title, but no, it won't. And I think actually what we all need to do is just be saying, do you know what? Some days I feel absolutely brilliant. Other days I really, really struggle to even see other people and see other humans. And that is normal and that is okay. And that we've all got stuff going on behind closed doors. We've all got shit going on.
Final question, then I'm going to open it up to the audience. How do you, like with all the projects you've got, the podcast, the events, everything else, there's the app, there's all this stuff that you're creating. Like, how do you manage, or how do you find time? How do you balance things out with your personal commitments, with your family, with all those other things in your life? How do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard.
Right, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, it's so, but again, I don't have the answers to this one. You know, I manage the best I can on any given day, and I don't have a social life. That's probably one person thing to say. I really don't. I went out to the theatre 2 nights ago, and I was like, oh my God, people go out in London at night. This is wild. There's like loads of other people about. And even my mum texted me today going, oh, nice to see you out and about on Instagram in the evening. And I was like, God, I am so tragic. But I don't have the capacity or the energy. I am exhausted by my work and my family life. So they're my 2 priorities at the moment. And maybe in 10 years, that will shift around a bit. And I might have some more time for friends. And I mean, I do see my friends a lot, but I don't go out at night. But I might do more, I probably won't, but I might do more like nightlife stuff. Or like I might do some more like self-care stuff, you know, that kind of thing. But at the moment, I'm absolutely knackered all the time. And I haven't had a lie-in for 11 years. And I don't ever stop thinking about work. So I go to bed feeling slightly discombobulated. And I don't think there is a magic answer. I think if you have a business and you have a family, or just one of the two, it's really hard. And we shouldn't pretend otherwise. And all this stuff like, you know, women can have it all today. No, they can't. You cannot be at work and doing the school run at the same time. You cannot be like nailing a presentation and making the sheep costume for the Christmas play that's next week. No, my friend Ella is doing that for me because she's an angel. You can't do it all. It's impossible. And I think if you think you can do it all, you're going to go mad. And you look at all these people on Instagram who are like, all the kids are wearing matching outfits and everyone's like smiling at each other. And it's just, and then my kids are not doing that. And they are like throwing food on the floor. And my son is telling me to literally shut up at this point. And, you know, it's like, it's hard. It's really hard. It's not easy. And I'm really tired all the time. And that's my answer.
Aren't you pleased you came for this motivational talk, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah. It's real life.
Right. Over to you. What questions you got? Let's go to Jay. First of all, we get the microphone.
Do you know everyone's name?
I've got a trick.
Right.
I only pick the people that I know the names of. But
Sorry,
it looks really impressive, doesn't it? That's not true, actually. I'll deliberately now pick somebody that I don't know the name of, or I'll pretend I don't know the name, even if I do.
Okay.
Jay.
Fearne, thank you. It's 23 years since I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act as an armed forces veteran with PTSD. And 23 years ago, it was a lot more taboo than it is these days. And although that's moved on, I think we're perhaps on the verge of another mental health pandemic almost with regards to the demand and need for it. What's the future and how do we all manage that as opposed to this imposter syndrome that social media seems to be creating?
Yes, well, thank you very much for sharing that, because that is a big thing to say in front of a room of people. So thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. I think, you know, there's a lot wrong with how we're living at the moment, which is why I think many people are suffering with mental health. And it's certainly why we're constantly trying to brainstorm with Happy Place, other things we can do that might be able to help a tiny bit. We haven't got big solutions, but we just want to do something nice and good. But, like, you know, Gabor Mate is really good on this subject in terms of talking about how this is our normal now. You know, we're moving really, really quickly. We're trying to do way, way too much. And the heightened comparison that we now have normalised with social media is really not doing us any good at all. And the fact that we see sort of rest as something luxurious or even worse, lazy. And, you know, these sort of myriad things that are wrong with the world right now, but they're normal. So we just go, oh, well, I've just got to carry on. It's normal. So I think my hope, and I'm a hopeful person, I'm an optimistic person, is that there will be some sort of implosion, and that in 20 years we look back and go, oh my God, remember when we were all on social media posting selfies and like pictures of our best life on holiday? And we'll be horrified, like we do when we think like, oh my God, remember when you used to be able to smoke in a pub? And now it's like not atmospheric, it's not smoky. You know, we all used to do that and it was normal, and now we don't. And I think that will happen in ways, but I also think we've got to lead that sort of revolution in ways that we can. And it doesn't have to be in big, grand ways. I don't think it has to be anything that is out of the ordinary or anything that is like you rallying your mates to all do the same. I think we can lead by example, and a good one that I have to challenge myself with is really simple. It's like when someone goes, oh, how you been? What have you been up to? We all go, oh my God, I'm so busy. I haven't had literally any rest in the last month, and I'm literally working every hour that God sends for the next 2 months. And we boast about it, and that's become normal. And I think we can go against the trend with that one and be like, do you know what? I didn't do very much today. Just sort of sat around and ate some biscuits, and it was kind of fine. It was average. It was an average day. It was an average day. You know, we're really allergic to the average, and we are really allergic to like not doing very much. So I think we can lead these tiny revolutions in our own way with like little incremental things we do. Doesn't have to be like, right, we need to be marching down to number 10 to demand, you know, they're not going to listen anyway. But we need to just do our own thing. And you know what someone said to me the other day, and this has really stuck with me, this amazing wise elder that I love, and it's why I think intergenerational friendship is so important. And she said to me, be your own counsel. And I was like, yeah, I really need to start doing that, because so often we go, oh, what's this new top tip on Pinterest, and what's this person just said, and what did my friends say I've got to do, and what are they doing over there? No, what do you want to do? What feels right to you? And I think that comes, certainly for me, it's come with age, and I'm getting better at it, but I want to be my own counsel much more often. That doesn't mean I'm not going to reach out to people in times of need, but sometimes I know, like I really know, I know what I need to do, I know what's right for me, but I still don't do it. So I think we need to be our own counsel, and we can't rely on, you know, there being huge government changes or even cultural changes. We've got to rely on ourselves to make little changes, and start small, start local, start with your mates, start with your family, and then we can hopefully see ripple effects everywhere. But yeah, I don't know the true answer to it. They're just some idle ramblings. Thank you.
I'm really trying to pick someone that I don't know the name of now. This lady here in what looks like an amazing blouse, yes. What's your name?
My name is Hajar Bayaz. Thank you very much for putting all this together. It's my first time in EE, so I'm loving it. My question is, I've started a podcast in February, and it has ranked one of the top 10 in the UK on Chartable. Thank you. It's thanks to the amazing guests I've brought on the podcast. Now, my question is, I don't want to be looked at the person who interviews others only and brings guests to her podcast. I want to be looked at someone who has authority and someone who actually people buy from and listen to her story. So where do you draw the line between, you know, being someone who actually people want to follow you for you, not for only the guests that you bring in your podcast? And I'm going to be a bit cheeky.
I sensed this one was coming, by the way.
My second part of the question is, I would love to host both of you in my podcast. So, thank you.
I love it. That is taking an opportunity by the balls. I love it. So I'll answer your question first. And I don't know, because I think I sort of care less about that these days. And that might be, I mean, this is all bespoke stuff here. So, you know, I when I was doing broadcasting, I'd interview someone for like 2 minutes and then it would be all down to me. And I found that a deep pressure, everyone looking at me and wanting to know what's what or know about my private life. And I didn't particularly enjoy that authority, if it could be classed as that. So I liked attracting from myself personally and professionally to learn about other people. And I think I've probably learned the most from doing that, I would say. But I think it goes back to what I said earlier, like, we've all got a story to tell. You've got a brilliant story to tell in you. Just keep telling it. And I don't think we should focus too much on, like, what's the smartest way I can tell my story, or what's the marketing behind that, or whatever. I think it's be you. Be exactly who you are and be unfiltered in who you are. And that's the only reason people end up being attracted to anyone, is the true qualities of someone. I think everyone's so good at spotting a faker these days. Everyone can just see it and go, nah, I don't believe you, mate. Don't believe you. We've been exposed to so much content that we know when something's real. So I think if you want to move more down that path, just be you and be totally and utterly unapologetically unfiltered. And yeah, I'll have to give you my manager's email address for the second part of that.
I've got a comment on this. Your question presupposes that by being an interviewer, you can't build authority. Because, I don't know, Fearne Cotton doesn't have any status or authority whatsoever, does she? And has built that through being a broadcaster, being an interviewer primarily.
I'll tell you what's interesting about interviewing.
Do you do solo episodes on?
No, never.
It's all interviews.
No, never.
So, like, you're thinking that, oh, if I only do interviews, that I'm going to have myself seen as not an authority. That is not true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you know what
true.
I think? The good thing about interviewing is it's a skill that you can never stop learning. So I've been doing it, well, since I was 15, quite frankly, but obviously much more intensely with the podcast the last 5 years. So each time I do it, I hopefully get a bit better. I mean, some days I'm not quite on my A game, but I get better every time. And the job, people listen and think, oh, just having a chat looks easy. I put so much work into every one of those episodes to make it sound easy. And you watch the best interviewers out there, like my favourite interviewer is Kirsty Young. Impeccable. Flawless. She is incredible. She naturally obviously has charisma and she's naturally extremely smart and inquisitive, but she has honed that skill beyond belief. So if any of you interview people in your sphere of work or do a podcast, you're never going to hit a dead end with that one. You cannot stop learning how to be a good interviewer, and it's a skill that I get such a kick out of learning from. And the best thing you can learn about interviewing people is active listening. Just listening. Properly listening. Because I didn't used to do that. On Radio 1, I'd be going, oh, shit, I've got to play a song in a minute. Move on, come on. What can I say that's funny next? That would be my thought process. Now I am listening to everything and like, oh, wow, I'm going off a whole other tangent here. Where's this taking me? So I think it's, it's a beautiful, beautiful skill to hone and learn.
And you can also get a lot of status, authority via association. By interviewing people that have got credibility, authority in a certain field, you kind of piggyback on their credibility, and actually, I think, can give you more authority faster than just doing it solo. I personally do both, and I really like doing both on our podcast. Great question. Give a round of applause. Let's come to Mart in the front row. He's wearing a name badge.
Where have I met you before? Oh, that's all right. Oh, nice to see you again.
Well, I've actually brought you a gift. So is that okay?
Oh.
I've got to take this opportunity, haven't I?
Oh, thanks, babe. So nice to see you again. I kept looking down thinking, I know him. Why
Yeah.
do I know him?
We spoke about crystals, so I've put the crystals that we talked about in there for you.
You've got the Crystal podcast.
Yeah. It's #1 for spirituality in the UK. Sorry to piss on your parade.
Oh my God, this is so cool.
So I worked for 15 years in the NHS, and I left last year to open Canny Crystals. I now have a #1 podcast. I turn over 30k a month, which was what I was earning in the NHS in a year. And last week, bearing in mind I've only been in business for like 1 year, but last week I was approved as an adopter with my fiance.
Oh, congrats.
So I want to know how you built your business around being a parent as well, and what kind of, self-care techniques you use in your day-to-day life, like tapping, meditation, visualization, to kind of overcome that and to ensure that your mental health is priority as well as your children's.
Oh, well, I love hearing stories like this, where people have a pivot, love that word, and do something totally different with great success. It's so exciting to hear that. And I think, I speak to lots of different people who feel stuck a lot of the time. And I think being stuck is so often, and obviously some of it can be circumstantial, but often you are stuck because you're choosing to be, and you have chosen to be absolutely unstuck. And I think that's so cool to hear, and all the beautiful things that you're doing, and to adopt and to have a family alongside your business. It's absolutely gorgeous to hear that. So well done. Congratulations. It's beautiful. It's absolutely doable. As I said, it's absolutely knackering, but I love being a parent. It's beautiful and knackering. I think this is what I've learned about family life and also running Happy Place, is that there is duality. Like, you can feel two polar opposite things at the same time. So I'm constantly exhausted, but extremely in love with my kids and very happy parent, and totally stressed out at work, yet euphoric about it. And I think a lot of it just runs in tandem like that, just two things at the same time on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's totally doable. Everyone does it differently in terms of running a business whilst having children. It's great that you've got your own business, because I think that does give you a bit more flexibility. Obviously, headspace-wise, probably not, because when it's your thing, you never switch off. But in terms of how many hours you're putting into family life versus work, there is luckily a bit more flexibility. And that's what I'm so grateful to have, because I didn't have that when I was employed by broadcasters. I was very much on their watch, and I didn't have that sort of say. So it's totally doable. And I think how I keep myself just feeling generally balanced, and, it's difficult to say, is it like, I'm in a great space right now, because I am today. I don't know what will be tomorrow, but today I feel really good, I feel really quite calm. I'm really enjoying this chat right now in this moment. And I think I'm able to have many more days like that, because I definitely prioritize moving my body in some way. A big walk, maybe a run, maybe yoga. I love meditating, so it's probably not daily, but maybe every other day, even if it's 5 minutes. I'm obsessed with this album by John Hopkins called Music for Psychedelic Therapy, and I play that and just zone out. It might be half an hour of it, it might be 5 minutes of it, but that has really got me into a really nice place of clarity, I think, listening to that. And I think relationships are probably, they don't really fit into like the self-care thing, but I think they're deeply important. And there's a great book by Robert Waldinger called The Good Life, which focuses on, he's basically one of 4 scientists he's a Harvard professor, who have led the longest study on humans. They've been studying the same people for 80 years, and now their kids and their grandkids. And the number one thing that it comes back to for not only mental happiness and contentment, but physical health, is relationships. And that doesn't mean like you have to be going out at night, because I'm not. It means really strong relationships with the people in your life. They don't have to be easy, they could be complicated, but they've got to be strong. So I think I place huge importance on my small friendship group and seeing those people regularly and speaking to them regularly, and my family, especially my parents as they're getting older. And that, I didn't used to give that a thought back in the day. So that, I think, has been a game-changing one for me, making sure that my relationships are really strong and giving them time and effort as well.
Thank you.
For my gift.
You're very welcome.
So kind. Thank you.
Let's go 2 doors down. Natasha, you've been waiting a while.
Hello, thank
Hi.
you so much for being here. Boundaries in business is really important. So I was wondering, do you set any boundaries with like your family and friends about sharing like media about you? Because I know that you said that you really care what other people think. So have you set any boundaries with that?
Yeah, what's your name, by the way?
Natasha.
Natasha. Yeah, I'm sort of terrible with boundaries in my actual life and good with boundaries at work. And it's something that I'm very aware of and that I need to do more work on. But saying that, in terms of that crossover, yeah, I mean, I don't post pictures of my kids because I want them to make that decision down the line. I mean, my 10-year-old, he's nearly 11, my 10-year-old's constantly like, oh, please, can I be on your Instagram? Like, asking me to. And I'm like, look, I just want you to get to an age where you're really sure that you want this, because you might, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, want to live anonymously or to do something different to what your ideas are now. So I'm trying to sort of, you know, and for my little one who's 8, she doesn't really understand the concept of social media, so I'm happily keeping her completely away from it. And all my family and friends know that, you know, if we're out and about, don't take pictures and put them on the internet. I don't mind taking pictures of my kids, but just don't put them on Facebook or whatever.
What about them like sending you articles? Oh, I've seen you in the media.
Oh yeah, I'm not a fan
like
of that. I'm
So
not a fan of
don't
that.
do that.
Not a fan of that. I've learned that one the hard way. And sometimes it's completely unavoidable. So I remember once, and this was when I was feeling mentally crap, and I was at a wedding, and I was thinking, oh, I'm coping all right with this. I'm sort of around lots of people, and so, you know, it's full on, but I'm dealing all right. And then someone came up to me and said something like, I can't even think what it exactly was about now, but like, oh, I've seen whoever the male are giving you a hard time at the moment. And I was just like floating out of my body, like, get me out of here, don't want to be here anymore. People say things in an unsolicited way without realising they don't mean to cause you harm. But it's often the first thing they'll say is the last thing they remember about you. They saw you in an article or whatever. I am not a fan. You know, certainly my team know. If there's sort of heavy shit going down, let me know. But if it's something just opinion floating around, I don't want to know and I don't need to know about it. I think it's a difficult line to tread because you do want to be informed as to what feedback is or to what, you know, we might be dealing with a theme at Happy Place and we want to know what the general thoughts are around it. But if I know it's going to be detrimental to and I know what my triggers are, I've got very specific things that I know I'm not going to deal well with, I am absolutely boundaried about that. And I don't want to talk about it, or know about it, hear about it. And most of the time, people respect that. But you know what's interesting? And I'm learning this as I get older, is even if someone wants to send me something hugely triggering, and there are things that could be hugely triggering to send me into a deep spiral or to bring back a bit of panic, I'm starting to realise that that doesn't have to be the worst thing ever. Maybe being triggered is actually what I need to have that exposure to something that I've got shut away in a cupboard over here and to deal with it. So I think we're, again, getting a bit allergic to, like, any triggers. No, can't be triggered. It's like, well, maybe I need to look at this stuff that, not all the time, but maybe I need to look at this stuff. So I think even when I'm sent something, say someone sent me an article and it was awful about me, maybe I need to see that to go, I'm going to be my own counsel on this one. Yes, this person can write whatever they want about me, but I know who I am and I need to do a deeper dive into it. So it can maybe counterintuitively be helpful to dive a bit deeper.
True. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going 2 more. So Tony, yes. I knew Tony, I knew.
Okay. Once met, never forgotten. So you have and continue to inspire lots of people, touch the lives of many people, and in lots of different ways, be it broadcasting, be it the Happy Place movement. But what do you want to be remembered for? What's like the legacy that you want to leave?
What a lovely question. I think it's got to be around honesty. Because part of my little ego jumped in when you said that, because I'm thinking on my feet, which I like. Like, I want to be remembered, for being kind. And I was like, wait a minute, do I? I don't know about that. Because isn't that just fitting into what, other people need me to be? And sometimes, actually, the best thing to do is what feels right to me. And that might not be pleasant for somebody else. I don't want to cause anyone harm, but I think especially for women, there's this whole a good girl thing. We've got to do the right thing, and you've got to be a good girl, and you've got to make sure that everyone's okay and that you're looking after everyone. And I think many of us are feeling I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm going to say no to that because I don't have the capacity for it, and I don't want to do that. And actually, what you've just said to me is really offensive, so don't say that. And we want to say what we want to say. But I think when I say honesty, it's about, I want to connect with people honestly. I don't want to just say things for the sake of it. I don't want to say things that are just there to get attention, or I want to connect with people, and that bit of that's listening and a bit of that's me being honest. I think when I was doing traditional broadcasting, I couldn't really connect with anyone properly because I'd bump into someone in the street and they'd go, I like your dress on top of the pops. Oh, thanks, lovely, all very nice. But there was no deep connection because no one knew what was going on in my brain. I was just reading an auto cue. Whereas now, I feel like I'm able to have a conversation where we can meet as humans. We can meet like our pain can meet, and that's always quite nice. We think we connect through the fun stuff or joy. We usually connect through pain, our pain, our shared pain in something. We don't have to dwell in the pain and only connect through the pain. But I think that's where we can start to get to know each other really well, where, when I first started talking about panic attacks, I'd say 4 people in my life that I knew very well called me and went, I didn't know you're having panic attacks. I've been having panic attacks for years. And we'd never gone there. And it was a whole other layer of connecting with people. So I think I'd like to be remembered, if I am remembered at all, by being honest. And if I'm not remembered, that's also fine.
There's no chance of that.
I don't feel we've given this side of the room much love, and there's a lady with both hands in the air waving. So this is going to be the last question. So, thank you, everyone. Make it a good one.
Where am I going? Oh, is it? Oops, sorry, can I squeeze through? Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Beth.
Beth, you've got lovely hair, Beth.
Thank you, darling. Other people know me as Elsa because I dress up for a living. For kids' parties, not adult.
Let's make that clear. Let's make that real clear, guys. Do not go to her for business. Okay, it's kids' parties.
I was the lady before, by the way, that screamed dig at you, just so you know. So when you were saying someone else who in the room is equally as old, that was me.
Yay!
It's probably actually quite fitting that it's me after the other question, because when you were saying about being remembered, I remembered you when I was younger than my teens, and here we are nearly 25 years later, and I still remember you.
Oh, thanks, babe.
And the reason for my question kind of is when I used to watch you on TV, I was going through a trauma of losing my mum, and one of the things, unfortunately, that got me through was watching television. And as much as I love people, like you said, you love people, but you like being on your own. My brother's actually sat next to me as well, and I love him dearly, but he was a lot younger than me. So I used to look up to people like yourself to get me through it. And you, other than Disney films, obviously, that I used to watch, you were one of the people that I used to watch and think, you make me feel good. And I used to love watching Dig It, amongst other programs. For you, what is something that helped you overcome a trauma or made you feel good, just so that other people in the room think, nothing's helping me right now? What helps you to get through the bad stuff?
Oh, thank you so much. That means the world. It's so lovely of you. I think, again, what I've learned is that all the stuff, I mean, this is me personally, and it's different for everyone if you've been through challenging times in whatever form, is that all the stuff that keeps us really trapped in feeling awful is the stuff that we're really scared of. And we think, I don't want to look at that bit of me. I don't want to think about that bit. I just want the nice shiny bits to be out for everyone to see and for me to take note of. And I think through the work that I've been doing, I've realised how freeing it is to not only acknowledge parts of me that I previously detested or was terrified of, but actually to talk about them, and because they're not scary then. They're not scary at all. You know, if you really own those parts of yourself, they can't hurt you. They really can't hurt you. So I think a lot of the time, you know, when I certainly was in a very, very bad headspace, a lot of it was because I was in deep self-loathing and I thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me. I thought I was flawed dramatically and that everybody else could see it. And then obviously, in turn, you know, I started to then not do as much TV work. People weren't asking me as much, which then reconfirmed what I was believing. So I was like, well, it's definitely true. I must be a bit odd, or people think I'm strange, or I don't know. I had all these murky thoughts going on. And then the panic was, again, that was much more propelled, worrying about either what people thought of me or what the worst thing that could happen would unfurl. So I would catastrophize, but believe, not even think, believe it was going to happen. So I was just terrified. I was on edge, terrified. That awful, awful thing is going to happen. And I still get that a little bit here and there. I have to watch that one. And I've got certain environments that really bring that out of me. Weirdly, something like this, I feel quite safe. And I think because I like talking honestly, I feel quite safe and I feel quite comfortable. But there are certain situations where I really don't. And I'm catastrophizing and worrying about all sorts of things. But I think if I say them out loud or I acknowledge them rather than pushing them to the bottom, they just sort of dissipate a little bit. Or if I sort of put words to it, like, you know, say I was doing a live TV thing and I was catastrophizing and thinking of the worst thing, which is usually, I became very fixated with, I'm going to faint. That was the thing. So I'm going to faint on live TV and it's going to be so mortifying and then it's going to be on the news and whatever. I'd just go off into a spiral. And I would believe it so much that I would bring on the feeling of fainting and I would be having to battle it on live TV, like I'm not going to faint, spinning out sort of thing. But if I could go back, I think what I'd say to myself, because I don't put myself in that position so much these days, but I would say to myself, you're scared of being humiliated. That's all it is. You're scared of being humiliated because you already feel, in a sense, humiliated. So you're scared of that being even more heightened. So I think putting words to it, talking about this stuff, that's really helped get me out of a challenging time. Like if I ever feel I'm going to have a panic attack, I'll just say to the person, do you know what? I just feel like I'm on the edge of this thing and I just want to say it out loud. And then as soon as I've said it, I'm like, oh, I feel all right now. Yeah, hopefully they'll catch me, exactly. But I think it's sort of owning all of that and you know, looking around the room today, knowing that everyone's got something like that going on. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but there's no one person in this room right now feeling absolutely confident in who they are, absolutely comfortable with who they are, absolutely free from things that have happened in the past or free from fears of things that will happen in the future. I've never met a person like that. And if I have, they're lying. So I think that is a real amazing realization that everyone has got demons, stuff going on in their heads. And if we just admit to our own and maybe speak them aloud, that's got me out of my own specific challenging time. I'm not totally out of the woods. I'm not sat here going, oh, that's all in the past. You know, I still have panic attacks here and there. But I'm not where I was 10 years ago, and that feels really good.
hey, let me ask you a question. How would you like to be a guest on this podcast? How would you like to share your expertise with our army of listeners? We get between 500 and 1,000 downloads every single episode. If that sounds like something you'd like to do, then get yourself over to expertempires.com/podcast. That's expertempires.com/podcast. On that page, you'll see that when you join the priority access list for our next Expert Empires event in May, you'll see that if you're first in line to buy your ticket, then you'll get access to over £1,000 worth of bonuses. And one of those bonuses is that you can be a guest on this podcast and get your message out in front of our listeners to generate leads, opportunities, inquiries for your business. We're also going to, for the people that are first in line to purchase the ticket to Expert Empires in May, we're going to have my team of marketing experts create a marketing campaign for you, for your business, that's designed to get more clients and more cash in. And finally, if you're one of the first people to purchase a ticket, we're going to upgrade your ticket to a VIP or elite level, which is worth an additional £200. Listen, we've had over 8,000 people attend Expert Empires over the last 7 years. We've generated or helped our clients, our audience, generate tens of millions of pounds in extra revenue for their coaching, consulting, speaking, expert business. So go to expertempires.com/podcast now. Get yourself on the priority access list for our next event in May. That means you'll be first to know when headline speakers are announced. You'll get the absolute best deal on your ticket, and you'll also have the chance to be a guest on this very podcast. So get yourself over to expertempires.com/podcast, and I'll see you there.
Thank you so much for listening to Empire Builders. Please subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, on Spotify, on other platforms, and share the love, tell your friends. Remember, till next time, the more you connect, the more you collect.